Hello and welcome to this podcast from the BBC World Service. Please let us know what you think and tell other people about us on social media. Podcasts from the BBC World Service are supported by advertising.
Celebrations on the Wembley pitch. Just like that, 50 matches have evaporated into memory. Only one remains. As the Italy defender Leonardo Bonucci puts it, one more centimetre to go.
Leading the conversation on the global game. This is World Football on the BBC World Service.
After 50 matches, a record 140 goals spread across 11 cities throughout Europe, we're down to the final of Euro 2020, England versus Italy. And that's not all this weekend, because in South America, it's the final of the Copa America, with rivals Brazil and Argentina facing off. Will Lionel Messi or Neymar win their first ever senior international trophy? Hello, I'm Manny Jasmine. Welcome to World Football. With me, the former Scotland international, and I can say this one last time, Pat Nevin, veteran of Euro 92, and also Heather O'Reilly, who's never played in the Euros, but you've played in some pretty big finals, Heather, World Cups and Olympics, won most of them. So what are the days and hours leading up to a final like for players?
Oh, they're long days. I think that as a player, you're just doing everything that you can do to just pass the time and not waste any emotional energy. So I know that some of the times in the hotel room with my teammates gearing up for big games, we would actually play a lot of games together, cards, all that kind of stuff to kind of keep good team camaraderie, but just, sort of pass the time. And I don't think it's good or healthy for players to be on their own, reading messages from home and being on the internet and things like that, because you can just distract yourself so easily and drain yourself emotionally. So, I think that the guys are probably just doing everything that they can to recover. So lots of massage, lots of walking, stretching, team meetings, going over every last detail, but mentally and emotionally just trying to pass the time and not drain yourself.
Are England and Italy the best two teams in the competition, Pat?
That's a great question, because if you're in the final, you think they should be, but that's not the way it works in these types of competitions. There's two, different routes to the final. So, England were on one side of the draw. They had the Germans on their side of the draw. But if you look what Italy had on their side of the draw, like the Spanish, particularly in the French, the Belgians, of course, as well. So that's a big call to say England are, one of the best two, since they didn't have to go by those big nations. However, it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. It's who gets through and who finds a way through and who manages a tournament. These tournaments, eventually, if you win it, you can say you're the best team. And you're comfortable with that. But up until you do, you can't say you're even the best two teams because of the way the draw went. However, having said all that, I think England are improving as they go along. And that's a good thing in a tournament.
Now, all coaches work differently, but what kind of messages do you think they'll be passing on to their teams now? Or will they even pass on messages? I mean, is it too late for that now?
Oh, no. Each manager will definitely have his style to get the best of his teams. But the coaches, I think, are probably just trying to instill confidence. At this point, there's just absolutely nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to lose. You're in the final. They're just going to try to get their guys to enjoy it and play, fearless but pragmatic. When I say fearless, I don't mean send numbers forward and not be cautious defensively. I think it's just a mentality to just kind of go for it, because if you're on the back foot in this game, you're not going to come out the winner, and you're not going to enjoy yourself either. So I think that the managers are probably just watching a lot of film, but making sure that they highlight their team and all the fantastic things that they've done this tournament instead of, talking too much about the opponent. I'm sure these players by now are pretty familiar with the other side. They've been able to see so many matches this entire tournament. So right now it's just about them doing what they do best, playing their best football, being confident and enjoying themselves.
What about the crowd factor, Pat? It should be heavily in favour of England because at the moment fans from outside England can't fly in to watch games. So it'll be the expats in England who will be supporting Italy, and they did a very good job of doing that in the semi-final. But you'd expect that they'd be outnumbered by English fans. Could that be a decisive factor?
Absolutely. It could be a massive factor. And it will be a massive factor. I don't know if it will be enough, but certainly looking at how the English team played and improved throughout, particularly against Denmark. I mean, by, late on in the second half, they were utterly dominant against a team that had run out of energy and ideas, and certainly all the changes that the Danes had made, they still didn't give any energy to their team, whereas the English, you looked at their players, every player was up for it and flying, and even when Southgate made the changes, they were really late, players weren't walking off or crawling off on their hands and knees. And part of that is great fitness. Well done them. And that's going to be a massive part of deciding who wins the final. But the other thing is, see when you've got 50, 60,000 people behind you singing along, be it Sweet Caroline or whatever, it doesn't have to give you a help. So yeah, home advantage is going to be a massive, massive help for England in the final.
Well, let's get an expert view from Italy. The former Roma and Juventus coach Claudio Ranieri is no stranger to English football, of course. He managed Chelsea and won the league with Leicester City. He thinks that the Italy manager, Roberto Mancini, has restored some pride to the national team.
I'm very happy. Because there are some young players and, of course, some players with experience, like Chiellini, Bonucci, Jorginho. There is a very good blend. It's very important that we come back at a high level about football, international football. It's important for all Italian people, not only for the fans.
What has Roberto Mancini done to make this team successful?
I think the mentality, right mentality. Yes, we have Italian soul. We stay together, we suffer, we fight. That is important, no? Mancini wants to give to the Italian team the happiness to play forward, to attack in every situation. Our mentality is changed. In 1 year, 2 years, we try to do this. When it's possible, we want to dominate the opponent. When it's not possible, we try to win the match.
What kind of Italy do you think we'll see on Sunday?
I think it will be the same national team. If it's possible, try to dominate the opponent. If not possible, they defend. And I think it's a very, very good match. I told before the European Cup, the final could be Italy and England. It was all right.
You certainly were. I wish you told me. Who do you think has been Italy's key players?
I think Jorginho was a key player, but also it's difficult. I think it's the team was the key players, because if I think Jorginho, and then I think about Insigne. If I think Insigne, I think in Chiesa. If I think Chiesa, I think in Bonucci, Chiellini, Donnarumma. It's the team was the key player.
What about Donnarumma? He's just 22, but he looks like he's been playing for 10 years.
Yes, I think it's the same. Oh my God, our national keeper.
Buffon?
Buffon, yes. Oh my God, there was a player. Too many players. Buffon, very young, was national team. And I think Donnarumma could stay 10, 15. I don't know.
What about Ciro Immobile? What do you think about his tournament? Because some people think maybe he might lose his place.
Oh, I know, but Ciro is a very good player, and I think Mancini remain with him in front because they link very well with Insigne, with Chiesa, with Barella, and with Verratti. And I think he continued to stay in front.
And what about England? There are two teams in the final, of course. What have you made of England in this competition?
Oh, England made a very, very good competition, no? And his team, Southgate, made a fantastic team. It's like a club team. The atmosphere, they play all together, they help each other. It's a very, very good team.
What do you think are the strongest aspects of the England team?
I think there is quality and the English spirit, because in front with the Saka, Sterling, Mount, Kane, Grealish, there are a lot quality. Foden, I know Foden is not right Foden in this moment, but is always Foden. And behind there is Phillips and Rice, stay there to block everybody. And the defense line is very, very strong because with the Walker is very fast. And Stones and Maguire is very, very strong. It's a good team. Well done on Southgate.
Do you think these are the best two teams?
Oh, I'm used to tell when you arrive at the final are the best team.
What kind of game tactically do you think we'll see?
I think England try to push a lot because there are so many fans in Wembley, no? But Italy try to play 1-2 touches to go over their pressing.
Against Spain, when Italy had some problems, Roberto Mancini didn't change the system. It was still 4-3-3. Do you think he should have changed the system because Spain had more players in midfield? And do you think he will try something new on Sunday?
No, I think no. I think Roberto continuing the same way, 4-3-3. When you arrive at the final, you have your style of play and you continue in this way. But I think Southgate sometimes change, maybe play with the three in the back. But in this moment, I think they continue with the 4-2-3-1.
Do you think it's too close to say who will win, or can you see clear reasons for one of the teams to win this game?
I think it's 50-50, but Italy is ready to fight, is ready to play football, is ready also to win. I hope the referee is a very good referee. That is important now.
Do you think the Italian players will be affected because this is basically an away game for them?
No. Italian people players are used to play in every situation, and for them it will be very, very good to play against all the stadium.
Will you be nervous?
No, I'm very calm. I enjoy the football.
I hope you do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you to you. Bye. Bye.
What a wonderful man. Claudio Ranieri giving his view on the final. Pat, earlier in the tournament, I said to you, can you see any weaknesses in the Italy team? And you said, no, I don't think there are any. What do you think now?
The only possible weakness was you're looking at whether Chiellini and Bonucci would last, because of the age. But they have. They're still there. They've lost Spinazzola. A lot of people said that was a weakness, but Emerson actually has come in and done well, and they have got options everywhere. If I was looking now, I would say near the end of the Spain game, I think they tired. I think they only had 29% possession in that game anyway. But the chasing they had to do, they tired. And that high energy football that Claudio Ranieri was talking about there, they weren't able to keep it going for 120 minutes. In the end, they reverted to type, which again, Claudio mentioned, they find different ways of winning and getting through. The weakness in comparison to England, I think England are a slightly fitter, younger looking side. And strength and depth-wise, England just have a little nudge in that area as well. Will it be enough, to get England through? Who knows? I'm with Claudio on that one. It's a 50-50. But to go back to Heather's point earlier on, Italy have lost 2 goals in the campaign. England have lost 1 goal in the campaign. We're not looking for another 5-3, are we?
Heather,
yeah, this is going to be a
1-goal
game. I mean, it's going to be a low-scoring, tight match.
Heather, people talk about strikers who are on hot streaks of form or defences that keep a row of clean sheets. But what about coming through adversity and hanging in there and getting the job done, as Italy have had to do against Austria and Spain? England haven't really been tested in that way. They were by Denmark. They went to extra time, but they were dominant in that game. Do you think that Italy will have built up a toughness that will help them, or is this just a one-off game and whatever happened in the past doesn't matter?
I actually always thought that coming off a penalty kick shootout victory, that you have this like new appreciation for life in the tournament. I mean, you were like at the brink of going home. One kick could send it either way. So I do think that this will be from an emotional standpoint, interesting that they sort of just scooted through by the skin of their teeth, and I think that will give them an energy that Pat was saying was missing a little bit. I do think that they were a bit drained, but there is quite a few days now before the final. These are true professionals that will do everything and anything that they can do to recover. And again, it's 90 minutes to end the season, to end the year. So I think that they'll find the juice in their legs for this one for sure.
One point to add on to the top of that, I would suggest, Manny, Italy have got another extra day's rest. And that might just be the thing that saves them from the worry of not having the energy levels that the English have. But as we say, it's too close to call, isn't it?
Pat, in tournaments, when teams lose, they're easily forgotten, almost as before the referee's final whistle has been blown, because everyone moves on to the next match. But a word on Spain and Denmark, because they both played their parts, didn't they, in a couple of gripping semi-finals.
Yeah, they did. And had they played their games on different days when they went out, they could have gone through. It was that close. There was that quality about both those teams. I have to say I was very impressed by Spain. They seemed a long way away from me before the start of this tournament. And when you look at them now, I certainly think they're a little bit further along the road than a lot of people expected. It's been great to see Pedri coming through and everyone realising, that's going to be a guy who's going to be there for 10, 12, maybe more of the years, and a very central player to them. They're going to lose, obviously, Busquets. He's not going to last forever, but, they look like a team that's in transition, but they're a little bit further along the transition pathway than I'd have expected. However, we have to talk about the man up front, Alvaro Morata, a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. How he does it.
I mean, he had highs and lows in one game. I mean, not even an entire game. He came on as a late substitute, and he still suffered triumph and disaster.
Triumph and trauma. It was extraordinary. And I promise you this, I promise you it's true. Before the penalties were taken, I texted all my friends and said, Morata is going to miss the important penalty. And Jorginho's going to score the important penalty. I didn't even know what the lineup of the penalty takers were. It was written in the stars. So Morata, his movement is absolutely extraordinary. But if he could learn to be just a more reasonable finisher, just a quite good finisher, he could be one of the best players in the world. But we're all still waiting. And I just feel terribly sorry for him that he could have been the star of the show. And what happens? He's the one that misses the penalty.
I didn't get a text from Pat. Heather, did you?
I said friends.
No, I must have had bad Wi-Fi or something.
Well, I think we all know where we are in Pat's hierarchy of affection. You're listening to World Football on BBC World Service. I'm Manny Jasmine, Pat Nevin and Heather O'Reilly are also here. And we'll return to the final of Euro 2020 later and look more at England. But in South America on Saturday at the iconic Maracanã Stadium, there's the small matter of Brazil against Argentina in the Copa America final. It's only the fourth time that these two giants have met in a final in the 85-year history of the competition. But sadly, it won't be played in front of a heaving mass of fans because of COVID-19 restrictions. Brazil reached the final with a 1-0 win over Peru, but Argentina got there after beating Colombia in a penalty shootout. And for once, it wasn't Lionel Messi who was the hero, but goalkeeper Emi Martinez. He made 3 saves after psyching out the Colombian penalty takers. It all started with Davinson Sanchez, who stepped up to take Colombia's second penalty, and you could hear very clearly Martinez talking during Sanchez's run-up, almost up until the moment he kicked the ball, repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm going to eat you." Eventually, the referee had enough of Martinez's rather foul-mouthed language and told him to tone it down, which he did a bit, but not before he had made the decisive match-winning save to take Argentina through to this final. And joining us from Buenos Aires to discuss the match is journalist Nicolas Rodnitsky. Welcome to World Football, Nicolas. Martinez's antics were all over social media pretty much as soon as he completed them. What's his status now in Argentina? Is he become a bit of a legend this week?
Absolutely. We never saw something like that, probably because we can never hear what players are talking before a penalty. But yeah, he's like a legend. Now everybody's asking if he can make it in Portuguese. So if he's able to make the same things to the Brazilian players. Yesterday, his brother talked in the radio and says, yeah, he's married with a Portuguese woman, so he's able to make the same thing in Portuguese. So now we are waiting him. If we got to the penalties, that is not a bad situation right now, that we know that he can stop them. Yes, if he can make that dirty talk again against Neymar and all that stars.
Heather and Pat, what about trash-talking goalkeepers? Nico's right. We don't hear them normally. Well, we didn't before the pandemic because there were thousands of fans shouting even louder and even more obscenely. But what do you make of trash-talking goalkeepers, Heather?
I love it. I mean, you got to get every edge that you can. On the women's side, we had one of the more dominating personalities in football in Hope Solo for years. And, yeah, I mean, the confidence that it gives the team, that the goalkeeper, has the presence, has the swagger to intimidate the shooter, however they do it. Hope was less of a, smack talker, but more just kind of bullying and intimidating in her body language and her stares and her slow movement back to the line, et cetera, et cetera. So I love it. I think it adds entertainment, and I love that we can hear him this time, and I love that we could hear Messi even talking some smack.
I was loving it as well, I have to say. You would probably be surprised at that, Manny, but you use what you can use. But in games, that's what goalkeepers would try to do in the past. You just couldn't hear them. They're too far away. And if they did, you would blank them because there's a lot of background noise. But in the sad situations you mentioned, and it looks so much worse, doesn't it? Because we're watching the Euros with England with huge crowds, and then we turn on and watch Argentina play and Brazil play, and it's empty again, and it's really saddening. So, yeah, Martinez, use it where we can.
Nico, the big stat in terms of Argentina's national team is that they haven't won a senior tournament since 1993, and it's the stat that is mentioned at every tournament that comes and goes. How heavily do you think that weighs on the players?
That's a difficult question, because I think that now Argentina has a new squad, a lot of young players, a lot of new players. So it's like the media and the press is trying to get them right out of it. It's like they don't want to talk about the 28-year situations because they don't want to charge the players. So I think that this new squad is not so linked with that idea. But I think that Messi got that. It's going to be his 5th final. So yeah, he's and you can see it when he's playing, and with that shout that you mentioned, and actually with his posts in Instagram, he's very active right now in Instagram. He really wants to win this tournament. So I think that that's more heavy than the 28 years, that the fact that the Messi never won a senior tournament.
Nicholas, do you think that will affect the way people think about Messi going forward if the 5th final and he doesn't win this one and he never wins one with Argentina? Will that affect the way people look back in history about him as a player?
The problem is that we compare him with Maradona, and what Maradona did it's impossible to repeat, and I think that we are not being so hard with Messi. When I speak with we, I mean with Argentina people, we are not being so hard with Messi as we used to be some years ago, because we are starting to understand how big he is and how much he wants to win something, and how every year he's still coming here and trying to win something. So I think that yes, probably in the history we will say okay, but he couldn't win anything. But yes, sadly I think that yes, it will be something that we always talk about.
Can I make a point about that, Manny, just before we go on? If you win a Champions League and if you win, major titles like the Premier League in England, etc., and it feels like the biggest thing and it might make the most money and all that sort of thing, but they're annual and they don't last forever. If you do it for your country, and if Lionel Messi did it for his country, or Neymar did it for his country, it would last forever in their history. Now, I talked about this just last week about the effect that the Euros would have if England were to win it. And, they become legends forever in the sport. That's what's the difference. It's not whether you are a great player or one of the greats that makes you a greater player. The legend is made if you do it for your country, and it never, ever, ever goes away. And people never forget the year. You forget what year somebody won the Champions League if they've won it 3 or 4 times. You'll never forget the Copa America, the Euros, or a World Cup.
Blimey. That's something to look forward to, Nico. Enjoy the game if you can, and thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you a lot. Thanks, Manny. I hope to see you soon.
Pat, quickly, which is the bigger game in the world this weekend? Brazil-Argentina or England-Italy?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. I'm going to say Brazil-Argentina purely because, if you look at it, how many times? Is it 4 times you said it's happened? Brazil-Argentina.
This is the 4th time.
Yeah, that is incredible. Considering those nations, what they mean to each other, I think that's gigantic. But it's not much in it, but I'm going to Brazil-Argentina. I don't know about you, mate. I'm going to Brazil-Argentina.
Well, you just don't want to see England hoist the trophy, Pat. Maybe that's it.
The thing you have to understand about England, and we'll get on to them in a moment, but, there is one team they didn't beat in the tournament.
It's true.
I'll just let you think about that for a moment. They didn't. They may well get to be champions of Europe, but they didn't beat Scotland.
This reminds me of when Scotland beat England in 1967, Pat, and declared themselves to be the best team in the world.
Yes, absolutely. And I can see no problem with that.
Yeah, reasonable claim. Makes sense.
Well, we may as well return to England. This is their first final for 55 years. The former England international Tony Dorigo, former teammate of Pat, has close ties with Italy, having played for Torino, and he's now a TV analyst covering Serie A. Dorigo was part of an England team which had a very different experience at the 1988 European Championship, where they lost all 3 games in their group. It didn't get much better 4 years later, when again they finished bottom of the group. But he says that the technical ability and mindset of this squad is very different to what existed in those days.
There's been a lot of pressure for the side, simply because of the expectation. I think because of the World Cup and, of course, failing at the semi-final hurdle, there's always going to be pressure. And with the games, a lot of them being at Wembley, that just grows and grows. But I've got to say, I thought they've handled it, wonderfully well. And with Gareth Southgate, they've managed to produce an environment, I think, that allows the players to relax and flourish, and they're such a united force. They really are. And I've been really impressed with the way that he's handled the situation. But with England and the players that they've got as a squad, they've got some young talent, but they're just able to flourish and go and show what they can do. And that's that's an easy thing to say, but not an easy thing to do.
In past tournaments, we've seen other teams have this way of dealing with games and dealing with pressure, and everyone says, well, that's the European way. You see, they think differently to the English. Do you think that this England team, is behaving like a continental team, a European team, or even a top South American team in terms of mentality?
Well, I think the mindset and mentality is a huge part of elite sport. I think what is important is you're also true to yourself and true to your your core strengths and values. But I think Southgate has managed to do that, to allow them to express themselves. I also think, the style that we play, of course, we've come on leaps and bounds, and now we have got some great, technical players just about every single position. So I can see why that, comparison would be made. And, it is wonderful to see. Every time I see, players get interviewed, where there's 2, 3, 4 of them, you couldn't tell who plays with who at club level. It seemed one big happy family, and that's impressive.
You were at Euro 92, and at that point, the whole narrative of 30 years of hurt and defeats on penalty shootouts and that kind of thing hadn't started to be written yet. What was it like to play for England in those days?
I think not only in 92, I think 88, I went to Germany, the Euros, under Bobby Robson. We didn't do that well there. 90, of course, the World Cup was fantastic. 92, under Graham Taylor, was another, really disappointing tournament. And I think at the time, you look back now and think, well, just the pressure and the angle and every question that was put to you, it was always a searching one, and it was always measuring you against others, and it was just difficult because you're in the the public eye, just every single thing you do. And of course, when you don't start that well, things went from bad to worse, and suddenly every little crack becomes a chasm. So it was intense, it really was. And I think as well, we're I suppose used to more so being on the back pages of for the sport element, but it was like we were front, middle, and back. It was everywhere, anything that was going on. So suddenly that privacy is just straight out the window, and the pressure is on, in every single way. Whereas I just look at this team and the way that they've handled themselves, and even dealing with the press, it's a different mindset. I think these guys, are happy, enjoy it, part of the job, and get on with it and embrace it. Where as I think certainly going back, it was all pretty kind of newer, I think, for us then.
Sunday then, you watch Italian football, you watch Serie A very closely. Which weaknesses do you think England should try to exploit in the Italian team?
I think if you look at the game against Spain, you saw, Spain had large chunks of the game in possession. So they were, very good at that. What Spain, of course, failed at throughout this tournament really was to take their chances when they were offered. If they did, they would certainly be in the final. But this Italian side is just so wily, so experienced, at the back. Chiellini and Bonucci, and of course Donnarumma. I know he's only 22, 23, but he's already played for 6-7 seasons. So he's just an incredible goalkeeper. Isn't it? Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. I have to keep reminding myself that how old this kid is, because he's just unbelievable. But with that experience, you've suddenly then got these amazing youngsters, and then you talk about Chiesa, Barella in midfield. They've got some really good talent. The experience of Insigne. They're wily. They've got some very good, talented individuals. I think Mancini has brought them to the boil nicely. But of course, this isn't a new thing. That for the last couple of years, this Italy squad have been, largely unbeaten. So they're a quality side. For me, they were the best team throughout the tournament, along with England. I think both England and Italy have played well and won games right from the start. But it's going to be an absolute, tactical battle. But I can see us getting opportunities. It's going to be tight. It's going to be nervy. I'm already getting too excited. So I'm trying to calm down because, against Denmark, I thought we were the better side. But converting that, into goals and chances was one thing. But I thought when Sterling kind of went through and hit Schmeichel straight in the chest, I'm thinking, those little differences are what matters. But we come back, within a minute and we scored again. So it's going to be that sort of thing against Italy, because whoever takes their chances will win the game, because I think it's a really close call.
It's been quite a tournament for left-backs, Tony. Your old position, Luke Shaw, Joachim Mähler, Spinazzola, who's sadly injured now. It must gladden your heart to see that, because sometimes it isn't the most glamorous position.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because it is the most glamorous position, because all of a sudden now we expect our fullbacks to get, up and down. They need to be left wingers, they need to be left midfielders, and they need to be left backs. And you mentioned players there that do all of that extremely well. And Spinazzola, I think, would have been the fullback of the tournament. I think he's been absolutely tremendous. It doesn't sound right either for me to say that, because he's a left back with the right foot. That doesn't quite add up for me. But I tell you what, the way he plays, his athletic ability, and of course, going forward is his absolute strength. But he can defend extremely well. And then Mähler, you're right. I've seen a lot of him anyway at Atalanta, but what a wonderful, talented player he is. And again, the same thing, he gets up there and is assisted. So I'm not having it. It's an attractive position, and it's a really important position. And the boys are doing us proud, us left backs.
So, Italy or England, and why?
Yeah, it's going to be so very tight. And I'm actually going for England. I am going for England. Yes, I know that's probably my heart there as well, but also my head. I just feel that this bunch of players, they have a different feeling and attitude to me. And I think I'll be more nervous watching the game than they will. They're going to go out there and perform. And I think their best, I think, will beat the Italians' best. It's going to be very, very close, though. And it's tight to call. But I just think there's one huge factor in our favour, and that is the Wembley fans. And because we've already now experienced it to that level in the semi-final, that kind of surprise element has been taken out. So now they're going to draw off that, I think, hugely. And that could be the difference, because the atmosphere was just amazing, that it really was.
Well, try and keep those nerves in check, Tony, and enjoy the game. Thank you very much indeed for talking to me.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'll be able to, but I'll try.
Tony Dorigo. Heather, can you believe that a country the size of England hasn't played in a final for 55 years?
Yeah, let's be honest. They have underperformed, underwhelmed in tournaments before. They definitely have the players, the talent, and it just doesn't seem like all the pieces came together. Sorry if that's a siren. I'm in New York City right now.
They found you at last, Heather.
They're coming for me. It was good doing the show with you guys.
Right, now the moment that everyone has been waiting for. Newspaper writers all around the world are poised with their fingers on the laptops, because it's time for the World Football End of Tournament Awards. So, Pat, then Heather, best goal.
I have to say the best goal was a goal that I was at the game, and it was phenomenal. And it was Patrick Schick for the Czech Republic against
I didn't know
Scotland.
that you would be saying this.
I mean, I have to do it. I have to be honest about it. Now, to be fair, he was slightly helped by the Scottish goalkeeper being a little bit off his goal line. But, it was a brilliant strike. It was great imagination, good intelligence, and there have been other great goals, but that will stick in the memory. You must agree with that, Heather, surely.
You know what? Bizarrely, that's my number 2 goal. I always judge best goals by how loud I scream in my, my flat or wherever I'm watching it. And that one did get a good yelp from me. But for some reason, my loudest yell so far was Paul Pogba's goal from distance. First of all, I think that whole day was outrageous. That whole day of a round of 16 football, and that France-Switzerland game was just, it was just absurd. So, Paul Pogba from distance, top bins, just absolute class, absolute swagger. That was my goal of the tournament because I yelled the loudest.
Player of the tournament, Heather?
I'm going Raheem Sterling, because he is a player that every time he gets the ball, especially around the box, on the dribble, I think the world stands up. He's just so dangerous right now. He's so confident. He has been the most dangerous attacking player for me, for sure.
I don't think you can make a decision before the final, but I'll give you 2. I will give you 2. If England win, it'll be Raheem. I agree with Heather, because he has been unstoppable in certain parts, and he has been so important building up that relationship he has with not only Harry Kane, but other players in the team as well. However, I need to give a word for Jorginho. Jorginho controlling game after game after game. In the middle of a brilliant team, there is one cog that keeps it all going, and I think Jorginho has been fantastic. And be fair, that penalty kick to take his team through, that takes belief, that takes strength of character. Wow, when he did that. So Jorginho is definitely up there, and it's a toss-up between the two of them.
Well, speaking of screaming, it's the final category in the World Football end of tournament awards is Scream of the Tournament. Thanks to football with no fans, we've all heard some blood-curdling screams from players trying to get a free kick in the last 15 months. There are fans at the Euros, but some players have perfected the art of screaming so well that they can still be heard. I'm going to play you 3 options, and you have to choose which of these you think is the most impressive, starting with Raheem Sterling. That was against Scotland, and the referee didn't give that one. Number 2 is the Slovakian midfielder Jakub Hromada versus Spain. And number 3, Axel Witsel, the Belgian midfielder against Italy. Well, I think the last 2 get points for being sustained screams. But,
yeah, longest.
Do you know what I have to say, Manny? What I was doing was I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what was happening to them really when they screamed like that. Now, in actual fact, I thought that Raheem had been kicked, right? However, I thought the second one was on a medieval torture chamber, and he was on the rack, and he was getting somebody with a very blunt instrument, removing his insides. So I have to say, Axel, you didn't even get close. The middle, number 2, what was happening to him at the time?
Because he had the duration and the intensity going for him.
Yeah.
So I agree with Pat.
Well, it was a challenge. It was a challenge on his ankle that caused that scream, and he did get the free kick for it. So either it was fair enough or it worked.
And I've been on pitches where people have broken legs and dislocated shoulders and smashed their faces in, and they didn't used to scream like that. It's affected.
Come on, get
like
off
that.
it, old man.
They didn't scream. There you go.
Well, the key prizes have been handed out, so there's probably not really much point in watching the final now. But if you're going to enjoy it, remember you can hear full commentary here on the BBC World Service. Join Mike Williams from 18:30 GMT. Enjoy. We'll speak next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
World Football is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service.